here?
This is the 100th anniversary illustrated edition of My First Summer in the Sierra by John Muir, who was originally published in 1911. So this is the 100th anniversary. It is the complete text from the 1911 edition with 21 illustrations that John Muir had in that original one, and then there's approximately, well, there are 72 photographs that I took over a 12-year period that are very carefully selected and placed to enhance his wonderful text. And it's also published in collaboration with Yosemite Conservancy, which is a wonderful nonprofit doing work in the park, which for every book sold, I donate a percentage of my royalties to Yosemite Conservancy. And last but not least, the foreword was written by Dayton Duncan and Ken Burns, who are the wonderful producers of the PBS National Park Series that ran last year. In the exhibition that just opened, John Muir Sierra by Scot Miller, I think we have approximately 24 large format prints that are showing and are for sale. And by the way, for all the sales, a percentage of the sales also will be donated to Yosemite Conservancy. So
that applies to the prints also?
That applies to the prints as well, yes.
When did you first realize that photography for you could be a profession and not something that's more a hobby like it is for some people?
Well, I first, I think it was the mid-1990s when I first got the idea that I might be able to do something more than just photography as a hobby. And it really was in conjunction with discovering Yosemite Conservancy and starting to work a lot with that nonprofit. At the time, I owned an advertising agency in Dallas and volunteered to do pro bono work for Yosemite Fund at the time, even though they were in San Francisco.
So you've done some other illustrated books for other nature writers, classic environmental American writers. Are you afraid of getting pigeonholed in this? Do you really enjoy it?
Oh no, I mean, if I had to be pigeonholed doing something, photographing American classics by Henry David Thoreau, Walden, Cape Cod, John Muir, following in the footsteps of, like Ansel Adams. Not that I'm an Ansel Adams, but being able to photograph and do some of the things he did. If I had to be pigeonholed, it's not a bad pigeonhole to be in. I do consider myself first and foremost an artist with a camera. So even in these books, even though I'm illustrating American classics, the approach I take is very much an artistic approach, and try to artistically interpret these wonderful books, which have great conservation underpinnings as far as good message and so forth. And they're books that everybody should read.
What's your approach to going to a place that's been photographed literally millions of times and getting your own perspective on it? What's the challenge there? Well,
I mean, it is a great challenge, especially places like Walden or more so Yosemite, which is obviously the famous Ansel Adams, who is the landscape photographer of probably ever, and many wonderful photographers. And I have great friends that are photographers. So it is a challenge to go into a place like that and to try to do something different. But that is the approach I take the best I can, is to go look at it in my own unique vision, be inspired by the place, and then try to do what moves me. And sometimes it could be a big scene with the big skies and so forth. Other times it could be a very small kind of intimate portrait of pine needles on the ground or something. And so, I mean, hopefully when people see this book, and they go through it, that they'll see that maybe, hey, boy, I haven't seen that before. Well, time spent in the field is obviously a very important thing. I mean, the more time you're there, the more opportunity you have for different things, especially in nature and wilderness photography, because a lot of it can be determined by, Mother Nature. It's much more dramatic, to have stormy skies with dark clouds and sunbeams shooting through than it is to have just plain blue skies. There's no substitute for spending time in the field. But then even when you're in the field, it takes a lot of patience. I mean, there's a lot of times I'll have an idea for a photograph and I see it, but either the light, the wind, or so forth, and sometimes I'll spend 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours in the same place, attempting to get just the one photograph that I'm visualizing. But the good news is, these places are the backcountry of Yosemite, Walden Pond, the Maine woods in northern Maine, and so they're not bad places to have to wait around for the right time and moment. Patience is definitely a virtue for landscape and wilderness photographers.
Mm-hmm.